So week 7 is rehab of the lower limb. So this is the first level of the rehab on the mentorship. I know that there's rehab further on, which is kind of more related to sports, so like rugby or football, that kind of thing. I'm actually quite excited to start this one because this is probably where my interest lies most. So out of like the treatment room and getting out into the studio, getting them doing some more like functional movements and dynamic stuff as well. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to this as well because I can link it to some of the stuff that I've got rugby. So I work part-time at a rugby club as well, doing some of the rehab with the lads down there. And I'm currently actually using the stuff from the mentorship to progress someone through a lower limb rehab injury as well. So yeah, I'm quite excited to get started.
So module 7 is all about lower limb return to play. So this is now the key points here is making sure that we're going to be able to get somebody to an outcome, making sure that pain doesn't come back. So again, going back to module 1, our end goal is so important that we need like crystal clear clarity on what that is, because if we don't know what that is, we don't know which steps we need or which progressions we need to get there. So again, like the outcome for somebody that wants to run a marathon compared to the outcome that someone wants to lift their grandkids, our progressions might be very different for those two people. So that's really, really important to start with. Now, the key things about module 7 is just changing the variables now a little bit. So what we've done so far is like up to here, and that's kind of sessions 1 to 3 with a patient usually. So a lot of therapists in my experience are really good at this. So a lot of therapists are really good at desensitizing the pain. They're really good at getting them pain free on the bed. The biggest mistake or the biggest lack of clarity that I see daily on the mentorship is therapists that go from this point pain-free on the bed and they try and jump back to the outcome too soon. So if you've ever found yourself saying something like, oh, let's try a run this week and see how it goes, or just give us a text if the pain comes back in the next couple of weeks, this is where you're lacking that clarity. Because if we've got clarity here, we should know when this person is ready to get back into sport or get back into training or get back into life. And this is the difference now between like a professional sports return to play program and implementing that in private practice compared to like your bog standard therapist. And this is where you can really differentiate yourself. So obviously if we're working in professional sport, we can't just say, oh, let's see how it goes this week and throw you back in. We need to be crystal clear that they're ready to go back and they're not going to flare up, or else we're going to get it from the coaches and the management, etc. So the exact same thing in private practice. Before we discharge somebody back to running, back to life, back to lifting things, whatever they're doing, we need to be crystal clear that they're going to be able to tolerate that without reacting. So that kind of makes sense, Sarah.
Yeah.
So what we've done so far is our sessions 1 to 3, and this is all module 2. So this is going to be low load, low speed. That's going to be things like our range of motion. What else?
Stuff, isometrics.
Isometrics, exactly. So that's all going to be fairly low load, low speed. So we're starting to expose those tissues to a little bit of load, but not too much. And it's all very controlled. There's a lot of time to find the midfoot, for example, if we're trying to get a hamstring and things like that. We're going to move then from there into our higher load and high load, still low speed. And that's going to be things like our co-contractions, etc. So we're starting to push them a little bit now. We're getting them up, but it's still fairly slow. We're loading them up a little bit, but there's not too much demand on the nervous system here. What we're going to get towards now is we're going to start to reduce the load a little bit, but now we're going to go to higher speed. So this might be things like a lunge or 3D movement if we want to stress certain tissues. And again, we'll get to that a little bit more in part 2. Then we're going to progressively get them to a bit higher loads. Now it might go to a leap where they're hopping from one leg onto another, where there's a bit of weight going through it. We might go to a single leg hop. Then we might have our hopping drills. Then we might progress to like our decel or whatever. And obviously that's going to depend on your patient specifically, what you're going to do. So the key with module 7 is getting this right. And it's being able to take them through progressive loads, progressive speeds, progressive volumes, progressive impacts, so that by the time we get to here, we're ready, we know they're ready to go back. And I think this is kind of the key in terms of like building resilience and stuff like that a lot of therapists talk about. A lot of people don't actually do it. So the pain goes away and you're almost afraid to say, okay, now the pain's gone, now we need 2 or 3 sessions to do this and this. And I think this visual sometimes is powerful. I don't know if you found that, Sarah, like when you actually do this in the first session with a client, if I've shown them this graph in the first session, going from their outcome right back to where they are now, when I get to session 4 or 5 and the pain's gone away, they understand that this is coming, you know, because I've already explained that actually the pain's going to go away and then we need to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What's your experience of that been so far, Sarah? I know you've just kind of started module 7, but...
It's been alright. I've had a couple of people that have been like, oh, I didn't expect it to take that long kind of thing, and then I've kind of also explained your effective explanation with the percentages and stuff like that, but then they've gone, oh yeah, kind of thing, like they understand it once you've shown them what tends to happen, and the chances of it coming back is likely if you get to, I don't know, here and then just drop off.
Yeah, and I think a nice question to ask is like, is that what you expected? So when you're saying it's going to take 6 sessions, whatever, 5 sessions, whatever it is, and when you ask them, is that what you expected? If they say no, I'll go back and say, well, do you understand now why it's going to take that long? And kind of meet that objection as it arises. But yeah, so module 7, which we'll get specifically now into part 2 of this episode, we'll talk through some of the specific progressions we're going to use. But I suppose the key concepts in module 7 is just starting to increase the demand, increase the speed, increase the load, get to the point now where it's starting to be a bit more subconscious, you know, we're challenging reflexive reactions. There's not as much time to think about it. The body just needs to react quickly, which is just more like real life. And then that'll put us in good stead for our general population. We'll only have to take them usually that far, or our elite athletes or professional sports, or even, you know, high level amateur sports. Then we might need to do a bit more module 11 with them as well, which we'll get to module 11, which is a lot of the higher end return to play stuff. But the key thing for module 7 is the basics. It's taking them from the point of being pain free to get to their ideal outcome, making sure they're not going to flare up when they get there.
Yeah.